Okay, so you're all very, very welcome. It's fantastic to see so many of you here today. My name is Denise O'Brien, as you know, and I am the business owner of O'Brien Learning Solutions. We have 1 hour together today to look at some of the leadership challenges in the aviation sector. So anyone who is managing people, has oversight for people, teams of one or teams of many, you are all very, very welcome. And anyone who's obviously like a budding leader or just has an interest in people leadership and who works in the sector, obviously you two are more than welcome. So Sarah is here as my producer today. She's part of the O'Brien Learning Solutions team. So Sarah, did you want to say a few words just about logistics and the plan for the day?
Absolutely. Thank you, Denise. So good morning, everybody, and you're very welcome to our webinar today. My name is Sarah McCarthy, and as Denise has said, I will be producing today's session. So I'll be here in the background to help with any technical issues that may occur as we go through this hour. As Denise has said, we will be popping you into a breakout room today, which will give you an opportunity to discuss with your peers the topics that Denise is going to set with you today. And if you can, when you go into those breakout rooms, put your cameras on. That will be fantastic. It's a great way for you to interact. And if at any point today you do want to put your camera on, then it's nice to see your faces so we can see how you're interacting with the content that's being delivered today. If you can keep yourself on mute, that'd be great. But if you have a question at any point, please do chip in. Or if you wanted to send a private message to myself in the chat box, then please do so. You can use emojis as you go through as well to give us a thumbs up for the content, or any other emojis that you may feel come to mind. And that's going to be pretty much it. We're going to just have a nice steady session. I'm going to be putting up a poll as well. Just want to get your thoughts on a few things. So watch out for those links that may come up on the screen, and I will guide you through the morning. I'm going to hand you back to Denise now. And if you need anything, I'm here in the background. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. So folks, this is the plan of action for our time together. So a bit of an introduction to me and the background and why I'm here talking to you about leadership in aviation. Some of the key issues then that I have come across, and looking at a bit of a deep dive then into that. And what I want you to have today are some really practical tips that you can take away straight away and start using yourself after this webinar. So I wanted to make it meaningful and practical, and hopefully we have done that. So we will ask for your feedback as well afterwards, and you can make any suggestions as to anything else you'd like to see in the future. So yeah, who am I? Well, as many of you know, I'm from Shannon. I grew up near this fine airport of ours. My house is not on the image there, but it's somewhere over there. So I'm a very passionate resident of Shannon, of the Shannon community, and worked for over 25 years in financial services. So I have a background in leadership development, studied marketing, and have had a lot of CPD along the way since in all types of behavioral psychometric tools, and looked then at management from the other side of the coin. So I moved into operations management, change management, worked with a number of client-facing companies over that period of time. So I was very fortunate to be in Shannon and to work really and build my career here while I raised my daughter, who is now an adult, and that job is done. So on to this part. So really what I'm saying is, I guess, you know, I've earned my stripes, as they say, as a facilitator. I've worked with all teams of all shapes and sizes across a variety of industries. And you've probably heard this theory about, you know, 10,000 hours of practice needed to achieve mastery in a particular field. So I just wanted to assure you that, you know, I have done that at least once. I didn't want to go as to say that I have a full 20,000 hours, but I probably do. And a lot of the areas that interest me and that I've spent time looking at, as I said, are all the areas around human behavior. So why people do the things that they do, and how, and is it possible to affect change at a humanistic level in a corporate setting? So in terms of then the why aviation, I've had the good fortune over the last number of years. So I went into business about 7 years ago as a consultant after leaving financial services. And, over about the last 5 years or so, I've worked with a variety of different providers in the aviation industry. And it just occurred to me this year to try to consolidate some of those learnings and share them with people in the industry who might be struggling with some of the same issues. Now, I will say today, there's nothing here that I'm going to share that has been NDA'd. A lot of the people that I work with require me to do that. So yeah, I do respect that, and I just want to, assure you that that's the case today. So it is going to be at a high level. But trends, I'll be looking at trends and the reasons why I think these particular key issues are important and relevant for this particular audience. Okay. So that's me and O'Brien Learning Solutions and our experience. And just coming to our first poll now. I'm going to just see about what the general feel is around performance management. So I have a question here, but that's not the question for the poll. But I just want you to start thinking about, do you manage performance or does performance manage you? And by that, I mean, performance happens, okay? People show up. Generally speaking, from my experience, nobody gets up in the morning and says, okay, I'm gonna set out to do a terrible day's work today, or I'm gonna get distracted and I'm not going to complete anything that I wanted to complete. Like, nobody starts the day like that. And performance happens, but if we don't utilize some, essential, basic, bare minimum non-negotiables, I call them, when it comes to managing ourselves and others, then it can feel like we're being managed by the performance. And by that, I mean, people issues, and that can take on a life of their own and feel kind of overwhelming at times if we don't follow a few basic principles. And we're going to talk about those today. So the question in the poll, and this is not a trick question, it's a yes or no answer. So Sarah is going to run that poll for us now. So I enjoy holding performance review discussions. If you can just click if anybody has experience with that, on your own experience and what it is that you would like to answer there, either yes or no. I'll let you do that. So I enjoy holding performance review discussions. Great. Okay. So do we have any responses in there, Sarah?
Perfect. Just that's it. Everybody's answered. I'm going to end the poll now.
Okay, fabulous. So thank you for participating in our poll. Drum roll. Okay. So we have 2/3 roughly who have said yes, and we have 1/3 of people who said no. That's absolutely fantastic. I'd be very curious to hear as we go through the breakout rooms. For those of you who enjoy doing that, then, what is it that has brought you to a place where you're comfortable, and, what has helped you to get there? Okay. In terms of the people who don't enjoy performance review discussions, then there'll absolutely be more discussion on that here as well, and there might be some tools today that you can take away that you can use to help maybe raise that enjoyment a little bit more. Okay, so let's investigate. So recent research, this is very interesting. You may have heard of this term, the accidental manager. This isn't a new term, but it's been used recently in a report by the Chartered Management Institute in the UK. So they've researched the whole area of management and leadership development in various ways, but this is from a recent report. So as you see here, 82% of managers who enter management positions haven't had any formal management or leadership training, and they become, as you see here in this image, somebody who has accidentally ended up in a management position. So why is that important for us? Well, I suppose it's important as you're going through this webinar even to make a few notes and think, okay, is that an issue in our organization? Are people promoted? Maybe it's not a terrible thing that they've been promoted, don't get me wrong. It's the fact that they've been promoted maybe without adequate training, or a plan to provide them with the training that they need, ranging from, the technical aspects of the role, but the softer skills, as they're called, around, people management and leadership. So that's one of the issues that we find in this industry. People are getting promoted very quickly. And then what I'm finding when talking to people in your industry in particular is retention. So an average turnover rate last year of 15 to 20%. In your field, it would be important for you to understand, what is that costing the business? And this is a question I ask a lot of leaders when I meet them, and a lot of them actually don't know. And if it were my business, and if I was running it, I would be looking at, okay, in terms of the retention and the recruitment and the training, you see here the hidden costs. So the time to train people, a lot of the time in your businesses, the training is maybe done, as we say, on the job, so it's learning by buddy up, by shadowing. There might be a standard induction program, and then, it's people go into the team, they try and learn the ropes. A lot of them have a lot of experience already. And then, what we're finding is that we get the people in, we train them, and the next thing, there's a brighter, shinier object down the road or wherever, and you have a loss of 15 to 20% of that resource. It's just a trend. It's not the case for everybody. I've spoken to some of you who are very happy with your retention levels, and I appreciate that. Even so, it would be worth looking at the time, the cost. How much does it cost to recruit, train, and retain somebody? And, what is that in relation to the spend on development, succession planning, and, broadening the duration of the time that somebody stays with us for? Another challenge then that people have spoken to me about from your particular industry, again, are the multi-generational age gap challenges. And we'll get a chance now to talk about all of these. Okay, so I'm just going to go through them, and then we're going to get you to have a think about them. So the multi-generational age gap challenges are, it's very kind of current, and it's very kind of prominent out there. It's about, generation X, Y, Z, etc., and being managed maybe by people from a different generation or a similar generation. So there is theory out there that suggests, what motivates people across different age cohorts, from, baby boomers down to Generation Z, which is the youngest cohort in the workplace at the moment. The motivations are different. What gets somebody up out of bed in the morning is different. The style and preferences around communication are different. How people want to assign meaning and purpose to their role is different. So that is what it is. A lot of people are kind of a bit kind of challenged by this, and they're, I hear, well, I don't know how to manage this type of individual who maybe, extra ambitious, or has expectations around, promotion that may not be realistic, or they might be working with a manager who doesn't understand their need for affirmation, feedback, communication. So it's a subject that can be explored, and there are fixes and that you can put in here, but it just needs to be talked about. People just need to understand, what are the needs of the people on my team, and all of that happens when you actually have a good performance management system in place. Okay, so the next issue then was something that happened mostly over COVID. Apparently this is over now, but I just wanted to refer to it because, excuse me, this has left a kind of a ripple effect. So over COVID, we all heard about, the Great Resignation. So what does that mean? Well, people, for various reasons, left jobs, changed industries, changed careers, made changes maybe that were almost enforced, but some people chose to take different roles and look at hybrid working and working from home, and the benefits that gave them, etc. But what it did have the effect of doing was it changed the employee-employer power structure. So everybody I meet says this to me today. It's like we have to sell our roles to people now when we're recruiting. The tables have turned, the balance of power has shifted. Experts say that this is about to stabilize, and what the knock-on effect of this anyway was that there were talent shortages and just general changes in the labour market. So Ireland being at nearly full employment, people having like a kind of an a la carte menu of jobs when they go out to the marketplace. That has been the case, in recent times, and you may be kind of feeling the pinch because of that as well. Okay. And then this one, you've probably all heard this as well, quiet quitting. Not so much an issue with a certain kind of an age cohort, I would say, because going back to, the newer generations in the workforce now, the level of kind of, job for life kind of thing just isn't a thing anymore, right? So we know that. So this quiet quitting, it can come from any age cohort, really, to be honest with you. But it's generally to do with people feeling disengaged and maybe shortchanged or overlooked, or a feeling of being hard done by at some point. And this happens when people don't quit, but in one sense they do quit. So they're still there physically in person, but the output isn't in anywhere near what it could be. And I know some of you are dealing with this because there's different cultural models across your industry, depending on the nature of the organization and how it's been structured and how long it's been in place. So again, not an issue for everybody, but definitely for some of you that I have spoken with over the last few weeks. Okay. This is another one that comes up, especially for organizations who have merged, acquisitions, takeovers. Cultural shift happens then, and sometimes people aren't okay with that. They were comfortable where they were, they liked how things used to be. Now there's new policies, procedures, new management, new processes, and it just feels different. That's what people say to me. It just feels different now, and I don't know if I like it anymore. And that's fine if people are able to verbalize that. I feel that's a great start, and I would always encourage people, talk to your leaders about, talk to your manager, use the touch points. But when people get a bit stuck, in terms of change, you've probably seen this change curve before. It has its model, its roots in psychology, but it has made its way into corporate speak over the last couple of decades, to be honest, where people are talking about how to cope with change. So you see down the bottom of the curve there is the kind of depression, exit, hostility. It's all very serious and heavy and dark words, but hostility really is that kind of resistance to change. So we're staying here, I'm staying here, but I'm not going to change, and that can become quite demanding of the manager and energy consuming. Where what you would hope is that, most people have gone up the curve and they have put their toe in, they've tried it out, gone into problem solving, and actually integrating this new way of being now is just, okay, this is how we do things. But resistance to change is a real thing, that some of you are trying to deal with at the moment. I wanted to mention that as well. Okay, so I've spoken now for quite a bit. We're going to break you out into just rooms of, maybe about three or four people. You can talk as high level as you want. I know you don't, you may not want to get into specific details about specific scenarios. Of those 6 areas that we have mentioned there today, I'm just curious, like if you had to pick one that applies to you at the moment, which one would it be and why? So we have the accidental manager, we have the retention issues, we have the multi-generational age gap, great resignation, so people actually just making an exodus, and then you're challenged to find the resources in the first place. Quiet quitting, so you may have a sense that there is a cohort or an element in the workplace that are just switched off. You're still there, you know, so you're not seeing the creativity, the productivity. And then finally, resistance to change. So for those of you that are on a bit of a change journey, you may be looking, you know, you may have started a process of cultural change over the last period, and there may be a cohort that you're finding, you know, they're still not on board, and you know, that's an issue for us at the moment. Again, I'm aware that you are all, you know, working in the same industry. You may or may not want to talk about specific confidential cases. I totally appreciate that, but it'd be nice, I think, for you just to have a chat anyway, see who's in the room, who's doing what kind of issues are you having. When we come back out, what I might do is just ask for a spokesperson from your room to do a very high level summary, just briefly, you know, any trends. Were you all talking about completely different things, or were there any similarities? There's no right or wrong answer here. You can't get this wrong. So enjoy the chat. As I said earlier, you might want to turn on the camera now just so people can see your lovely faces. And we'll give that 10 minutes, and we'll come back then and do a debrief and kind of winding down the session then from there on in with a few pointers and takeaways that you can use from here on in. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to pause the recording now as well. Everybody, so how did you get on? I might just take a little whirlwind trip around and from room to room. So in room 1, we had Alan, Aoife, Donna Marie, and Emer. How did you get on, folks? Was there anything there worth kind of sharing out loud outside of your breakout room? Anyone want to jump in there? Any thoughts? Feel free to come off mute.
We probably we didn't nominate who was going to speak, Denise, so we didn't get that far. Donna Marie, I don't know, do you want to speak, or Emer or Alan?
Yeah, I don't mind. The big one there, I think they're very we kind of touched on 3 points. One was the accidental manager. In different organizations, they're finding that some people, correct me if I'm wrong if I took my notes, that while they left after COVID, if they stayed, they were kind of slotted into positions, and that maybe slotted in without the full pillars there, or maybe not given the training, and now they have to be given the training, so it's kind of a catch up. And that some of them felt that if they're not doing this, it's a case of that it's a sink or swim scenario. So you need to obviously find out that who needs the support and what support they need. So it's backtracking before you can actually move forward. I think we actually started going through all the points because we find the multi-generation age gap kind of falls into a lot of them. We find, because, for example, you've got the kind of the resistance to change. Even if there's restructuring, people don't want to change. You have ageism, there's people that don't want to move out of their positions. They don't want the new up and coming to come up, or, you know, trying to keep their attention there as well. We find the younger generation, they're using emails rather than actual face-to-face. Maybe COVID had a major impact on that, but even relationships are supposed to be based face-to-face. You're supposed to build on that, and I find they were saying that a lot of the younger generation don't want to do that, and while they're coming in straight from college, they just want to go to the next milestone, and maybe not taking a step to understand what it is they're trying, what they've achieved, how far they come, and what they've learned.
Yes, very good.
And then the other one I think we touched on was the quiet quitting. It touches again on the resistance for change, where people aren't getting support. They're not without realizing, you know, whether it's if you're a remote office or if you're in the office, you don't actually see people become stagnant if they're not being appreciated, or there's no fulfillment in their role, or they feel that, you know, they're not going anywhere. They don't realize there's quiet quitting. So you need the management to step in to help to kind of keep the cohorts, you know, keep the kind of the vibrancy going within the position, within the company itself.
Very good. Okay.
That's as far, we only got to those 3. We didn't get
that's plenty. Yeah, that was a very rich discussion by the sounds of it.
Hopefully I delivered everything, Alan and Aoife and Emer.
I think they were happy. You were voluntold, I think, for this one. So well done.
Yeah.
Thanks, Donna Marie. Great stuff. Room 1. Okay, so room 2 then was smaller. We just had a couple of people who needed to leave to join a different meeting. But we did have Eamon and Lidane in the next room. Did you want to comment, folks?
I think Donna Marie might have said everything for us all.
Okay. Right. Well, we'll leave you off the hook there.
I'll take that as a thanks.
Yeah, compliment, Donna Marie. Great. And then, so we had Fiona, Michelle, and Rita then in room 3. How did you get on there? Was there anything there that kind of came to light?
So I'll start, and Fiona and Rita jump in. So like what Donna Marie touched on, we had similar conversations. One of the things we spoke about a bit more specifically was around the challenges on hiring, and you touched on it, on this kind of the employer power structure, and that thing where you're selling roles to people. And we were talking about it in some environments where for instance, you're not able to offer a hybrid role, or maybe the amount of days that are preferable for people, that now is becoming as important for some people, more important than the kind of financial benefits. So in environments where that's not just, able to be facilitated or offered, that can be challenging. We just talked about that kind of piece. And then also just in relation to, change as well as a kind of challenge. And again, not necessarily from an acquisition or something kind of major, but even just from a growth perspective, if you're kind of changing from the ways that things have always been done into trying to kind of, move on to that next kind of phase of growth, that can cause challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you had things in common there anyway, Michelle, in room 3, but it sounds of it. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, great. So folks, well done, and thanks for getting stuck into that. Because sometimes, people don't know what to expect with webinars. I do like to have a bit of interaction and people chatting about current issues. So thank you for throwing your hat in the ring there and getting stuck in. Right, okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about some very, very practical but simple approaches that we can do moving forward. Now, you might already look at these and think, yeah, okay, happy enough, we're doing all that. So what else do we need to be doing? And we can talk about what's next then, as we wind down the session. So essentially, the goal of any employer who wants to, attract good talent and retain good talent, and have people who are willing to come on, the change journey and perform well, really what you're talking about there is to become an employer of choice, so to speak. This is, at the heart of it is about employees feeling valued, but the benefit to the employer is that you get to maximize your return on investment in people. And what I talk about is like the positive gossip mill going, so the kind of the advertising that you don't pay for, what do people say about your organization, past employees, would they recommend a friend to join, that's the kind of stuff that is kind of gold when it comes to raising your profile as an employer of choice. So we need to kind of try and tap into that, like what are people saying about our organization, what is it really like to work here, and I'll touch a little bit more on that in a moment. But yeah, the overall goal ideally is to become an employer of choice, and that is a nice phrase. It rolls off the tongue nice and easy, but there is a lot of work to develop, a people strategy that supports that. Okay. So we're talking about culture, and I'm sure you've all seen the iceberg analogy, where you have the tip of the iceberg, which is what's visible, what the eye sees. And as we say, the way we say we get things done, and then below the surface is the way we really get things done around here. So in organizations that I work with, what we want to do is we want to try and close the gap. We don't want there to be a big, kind of a conflict in terms of, well, this is what's on the wall in this company. This is what I was told at interview. However, when I started and I joined, I quickly began to realize that, people aren't walking the talk. Like it's not kind of an engagement kind of piece that follows through, So things like, what was it like to join? What was the support like? How often do you see your manager? Success celebrated. You know, most of you will probably have a strong vision, mission, value statement of some kind. You'll have good policies. You know, but what is that's kind of like the what, and this is the how. So how do you do what you do? When I talk about culture change with senior teams, we do look at a model like something as simple as this. You know, this one works well. Imagine your culture as a garden. So you're watering your garden and hoping that it will grow nice fruit and plants, and you know, throughout the year and for every season. But you need to be aware of what the blockers are, you know, and what are those things that are getting in the way of you becoming an employer of choice. You know, what is it that's stopping you? And is it time to look at that? Like, is it time to really, you know, talk about the recruitment strategy, talk about the succession planning and retention, and what are the blockers here? You know, and that's, I'm just talking about the people element today. You obviously, there are a lot of other pieces of the pie that need to be looked at as well. Okay, so very simply then, I've got 3 very basic tips for you to look at as you leave here today. And this might sound so simple that it might sound silly, but I would just urge you, like, please don't underestimate the value of doing the basics and doing them really well. Because, you know, one thing I can share with you is that, you know, in your industry and across other industries, like I worked with, you know, retail, banking, pharma. So in some cases, people do the basics really well, and it's about being consistent. In other cases, people are too busy doing the doing to look at how are we doing the doing, and that's where the wheels start to fall off eventually. So I love this because it's so simple. It's start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And part of the service that I offer, you know, being, you know, in the industry with you over the last number of years, I usually go in and ask people, okay, we do kind of a health check and just talk about, well, what is your current performance management framework? What does it look like? How do you differentiate performance at the moment? Usually there's a competency framework somewhere. Sometimes people are well practiced at using it. Sometimes people aren't. Some managers are better at understanding it than others. Some are better at holding people accountable than others. And this one here I love, because one of the things around, you know, the people who want to progress and progress and progress and who haven't stopped, you know, and got grounded in their role, a good performance management system starts to help the manager to manage that and to manage the expectations of those people. So have you looked at the breadth and the depth of your role? So most of you you'll have a job description, you'll have KPIs, you'll have behaviors, you'll have values, the vision, the mission. You know, there's so much there to be explored. And if we get really good at differentiating performance, helps to become realistic with people about the potential or readiness for promotion, or not, you know. So I would always do a deep dive. Okay, show me the paperwork. How has it been used? How often? How effectively? So that's something you can do, you know, today. It is really about, as I say here, dusting down the existing documentation. What do you have? Is it been used well? Is it been used consistently? Do people understand how to have the conversations to bring these documents to life? And that's the kind of one that people do fall down on. So in terms of going back to basics, then that's the next tip. What do I mean by basics? I know this might not look very simple, but these are the basics of performance management, you know. So we have our planning piece at the top. So we set our goals, we communicate them, we try to get involvement and buy-in, we set our objectives. It should be driven by, you know, the business strategy, obviously. It should trickle down. Everybody's objectives should link in and make sense. And then once we've done that, our managers, our leaders and our managers need to review and improve, monitor, coach and develop, and continue to do that then. So we have our observations, feedback, and then over on the left, we look at kind of, well, from here then, we need to look back to look forward. What was the feedback? What does that tell us about how we need to do things differently? And then we just continue this cycle. at the heart of this is continuous improvement. So an organization can't, not achieve solid performance when they're doing this consistently, and these are the basics, right? So I would say, have a look at that. Is there a gap? Where is the gap? Are we good at setting the goals and targets, but then do we fall down with the observation and the ongoing feedback? There's schools of thought out there that question the validity now of the performance management process. But really what's been questioned is the value of having one conversation every 6 months, and an end of year kind of conversation then to, reward or otherwise. So this is all about continuous performance management, and that's the new school of thought. Regular coaching, feedback, observation. And the more you practice this, the better you get at it, obviously, because it's a skill. Some managers have a natural ability in this area, some don't, but it can be learned, it can be practiced, it can be perfected. So that's the kind of thing that I can support with as well in terms of the programs that we deliver. Sorry, we're going forward here. If you're not able to do that for now, I would say at the very least find out for the people that are with you and performing well, and especially the high performers, have what we call these stay interviews. Okay, this is kind of a new phrase, but basically it's about having a good conversation with people who are there, they're engaged, they're performing well, about what it is that they like about this company and why do they stay, what works for them. Just a very kind of a no holds barred conversation would be useful to find out, what are we doing well, how can we do more of that. So instead of having exit interviews and waving goodbye to good resources, try and get in there ahead of that, have what we call stay interviews, and help, to share that then and kind of lift and drop whatever is working well into other teams so that it can be consistent. And finally, I know this sounds very, very simple, but take action, have a look today. Where are you spending your time? If you're responsible for the oversight of others or other managers or team leaders, are you spending any time on meeting people individually? Are you meeting them as a team? Are you spending the majority of your time on the task? Are you kind of very task focused? Where are you apportioning that? And what are the bare minimum non-negotiables? So I mentioned that earlier. At the very least, if I'm managing people, each person should have a half an hour a month with me where we sit down and we check in versus checking up. We do a check-in, like, how are you? How's it going? What's going well? Oh yeah, look, that was great. This needed a bit more work. Just because a lot of your workload is target driven, and I totally appreciate why it needs to be that. Sometimes that can become the whole entire focus, and people are slow to kind of ask, well, how are you? How are you doing? And these are the things that build engagement, trust, help people to feel valued, and then just put them in the diary. These are the things that get cancelled most often in my experience. Team meeting, the one-to-one, the check-in, oh yeah, we're too busy, and then the next thing, 2-3 months, a whole quarter has passed and nobody's had a one-to-one. There hasn't been a team meeting in 6 months. Whatever works for you. It might not be, it could be a huddle, it could be something informal, it could be a walk and talk. Some people do that, they go outside, walk. The weather mightn't be great for that now, but the coffee, whatever it is, these are the things, value add touch points. Every time you meet someone, can you make it valuable and can you make it meaningful? Then what I would say is slow and steady, short-term pain, long-term gain. If you're looking at this and you're looking at the performance management cycle, or you're thinking about recruitment, retention, like these are big issues. I would say take small action, but keep it consistent, and this 1% improvement theory, we've all heard that. We're only trying to improve incrementally, really, and set ourselves up for success rather than failure. So any goals we set should be realistic. Yeah, there should be a little stretch in there. But I would say keep it simple, do something very simple after today, you know, like reinstigate a meeting that has died a death. A lot of meetings died over COVID and they never got reinstated. Some of that's for the better, but some of it wasn't. You know, people started to forget how to talk to each other, like why it's important, you know, why we should build a sense of team. And you have a huge impact on how that looks and feels within your organization. Okay, so in terms of where to from here, I would love to be able to support you in whatever way I can. So I do offer, and this is on the website all the time anyway, but if you want a chat, it doesn't have to be for an hour, you know, over a coffee if you're based in Shannon, or, you know, farther afield, we can certainly arrange face-to-face or Zoom. You know, if you have something specific, however big or small, you know, we can have a chat about that. So you can contact me. You have my email. Some of the things that I've helped in terms of bespoke elements of the process are listed here. So these are the range of services and consultancy services that we offer. Some people might look at this and go, we don't really have a vision, mission, values yet. You know, we haven't even got there. We don't have a framework for behaviors. We're not there yet. So all of that is something that we can support with. If people are on a cultural change journey, a team that I've worked with recently, outside of aviation, they're in education. They were with me for a while and looked at a whole behavioral framework, you know, performance management. And this year they've been listed as one of the great places to work, and they're set, I would say, to be listed as the best place to work in their category, small to medium enterprises. So for me, becoming an employer of choice is about having a goal like that. You know, could we be award winning, you know, when it comes to how we nurture our people, you know, and the effort that we put in, could we benchmark it? That's always for me a good test. You know, how do we fare on a national level and in comparison with organizations of our size? And that's certainly a process that I can support with. So a chat sounds good. Give me a shout. Other than that, if you have like one or two people on your team that would benefit from going on a basic management essentials program, we are piloting an open program in Shannon in person, starting in January. So, you know, just taking expressions of interest now for that, because this is a new approach for us. Like we run tailored in-house bespoke programs. But because we're all here today and everybody's coming from, you know, a different business, not industry, we thought, you know, it might be beneficial for you to send your teams on one program still focused on aviation, but with just some of the basics of management in there, such as these topics. You know, we would use a psychometric tool. The plan is to use Insights, psychometric profiling, and to build the program around that, self-awareness, leading change, coaching, preparing for holding difficult conversations. So those would be some of the main topics covered. It's a 3-day program. Places will be limited. The venue is yet to be confirmed, but we're looking at a couple of venues here in Shannon. So contact us as well if that's of interest, and we can send you on a brochure and you can have a think about that. So that is me done. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask at this stage? Or comments or thoughts?
No, Denise, just thanks for inviting us to the training today. That was very useful.
I'm glad to hear it. You're more than welcome. I'm so happy that you were here. So thank you for your participation and input. Absolutely. And we'll send a recording of this, as I said, on afterwards. Feel free to send it on to anyone that you think would be interested. And hopefully our paths will cross again soon.
That's great. Great. Thanks very
so
much.
Thanks a million,
Thanks,
Denise.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye for
Thanks
now.
very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.